Okay, let's talk about episode 3, which was when we overlaid color and weave on top of monk's belt. But before we did that, we had another PDF and we talked about repetitive sequences and overlayering thread by thread color and weave on structures. So this is another great little PDF, and it shows us how instead of doing it on the block, we're doing it on individual threads. Now, I chose to do it on the block, but in the show and tell, I wish I had all the show and tells. In the show and tell, we had an amazing set of placemats woven by Mavis McMillan, and there was another piece in the show and tell. I can't remember who wove it. Anyway, it had thread by thread, and you can see how beautiful the symmetry can be. They were quite stunning, the pieces in the show and tell. So if you're interested in this, go back and look at the show and tell because you'll see it. So here we are learning to look for symmetry in overlayering dark light on top of other structures. This is Hovdraw. I can tell by looking at it upside down. This is Monk's Belt. This is 1, 3, 2. This is summer and winter. Yep. So we don't have to do it just on the units or the blocks. We can do it thread by thread and get all kinds of lovely striping sequences that appear in the warp. And if they're there in the warp, if we wanted to weave sections of a piece in plain weave, then those color and weave overlays that are in the warp can also be introduced into sections of the piece in plain weave. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so that was a wonderful little PDF. Then we got into the project, and the project itself had 2 separate PDFs. The big one that went through the draft and all the treadling instructions, and then there was a second PDF with images of each mat. So let's just look at what we did. The back page of the main PDF is a profile of the piece. And it's a good place to start. It's a good place to ground yourself in how you're looking at this. So everything except for the very center was a 4-thread block. 1, 2, 1, 2, or 3, 4, 3, 4. In the center sections, it was a 1, 2, so 1 unit against 3 units. It was 1, 2 against 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. And that's what made these stripes right here and here wider. And of course, in the center here, our white squares are wider because those are the 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, and the blacks are the 1, 2. All right. But this part, up in all 4 corners, we've got some pure log cabin happening. So we overlaid a bunch of ideas. On the front page of this, it tells us the things that we will learn. So how to overlay color and weave sequences on Monk's Belt. How we can challenge our ideas around Monk's Belt treadling and balance. And that was the big takeaway from this. You know, we're getting the idea of overlayering color and weave onto units, blocks, and individual threads. But this is the first time we challenged all of our traditional ideas about how a supplementary weft structure should be treadled. A thin tabby or a tabby that's the same size as our warp with a pattern weft that is twice the size of that. We blew all that right out of the water in this episode, and you can see it still works. We're making placemats. I'm not concerned about balance. What I'm concerned about is ease of weaving, because if I had to weave it the traditional way, I wouldn't do it. It would be too time-consuming and too painful to manage 4 shuttles throughout this entire project. So I'm just saying that about myself. There may be some of you out there who have the patience to do it. I I know where my patience ends. So if I want to create something, if I want to overcome my impatience, I have to figure out a way to be able to proceed in a way that's perhaps not traditional. And I'm just sharing that with you because that's what we did with this. These wove up quite quickly in the end. The other thing that we did with this is that we wove really good skookum, hefty placemats on this warp, but we also wove lovely, soft scarves on the same warp, and we didn't change the set. So the takeaway from this was we're using much heavier weft yarns for our placemats, and if we're not going to change the set, we have to change the size of our weft to get scarves on the same warp. So, but we can do that because we're challenging all those rules. We can not pay attention to all of them. Okay, so you've got a good PDF. It gives you the draft, gives you all the things that I did to weave them, the scarves and the placemats. And I'm going to just hold up the very first placemat right here. This one I wove entirely trompe rit using 4 shuttles. It's beautiful, absolutely lovely. But I had to have a light 8-2 cotton for the tabby weft and a light 8-4 for the pattern weft, and I also had to have a dark set. So I had an 8-2 dark and an 8-4 dark to manage this all, and I was working with 4 shuttles. I persevered. Mind you, look at the selvages down at the bottom. I should clearly have cut and tucked, but there's no way I was going to do it. I mean, I would get kicked out of any guild for doing that. But see, this is my own guild, and I'm not trying to sell this. Or if I were, I'd give it to someone in my family who wouldn't dare say a word. Anyway, other than thanks, Mom. I didn't handle the selvages well at all. So then I'm going, okay, what can I do? How can I make this easier? How can I make this more how can I enjoy it more? So here is the next piece. So Al, have a look at that up nice and close, and I'm going to read you what I wrote in the pattern. I'm going to take everything else away so that you're not looking at anything but this. All right. I was not enjoying the 4 shuttle business, so I thought I would try something different. I used 8-4 for both the tabby and the pattern picks. I just threw away the 8-2 shuttles completely. And the other thing that I did was that I used double 8-4 for each pattern pick. And I wove 3 pattern picks. So I morphed everything so that visually I was getting the squares that I wanted. I had an 8-4 light and an 8-4 dark, and where I needed more pattern float, when it was a pattern float, I used double picks. So I built everything on this system. It is clear. The graphic is strong. I didn't lose anything. My selvages are way better. Way, way better. And the most important thing was I didn't challenge my patience. When you're making a project and you have to make 8 placemats for somebody, a customer or whatever, you know, maybe that selvage isn't so perfect. Al, move up, move up. Stay away from those little areas, okay, from now on. I fessed up to my problem earlier. Anyway. I love it. I love the weight of it. It sits on the table beautifully, and it has such great vivid contrast. So from this point on, from placemat number 2, I wove everything playing with the sequences, the color and weave sequences, using that system. Only 8-4 for my tabby and my pattern, and my patterns were double picks in a shot. And when I was trying to get everything squared up, I wove 3 repeats. So now I'm just going to lay them on top of each other, and you can have a good look at every one of them. They're just a celebration of color and weave. Big strong pattern on simple little 2-block 4-shaft monk's belt. Honestly, look at that. Now we're looking at division of space in the big picture. Places, if this was a placemat, you'd actually have it on the table like this. This is a much better way for us to look at it. Here's our placemat on the table. Cutlery is here. Plate is here. So I divided up the space thinking of all of those things. Let's have a quick look at that one. That one's the same all the way through. This one has got borders. My cutlery would be just perfect right here. They're lovely. This set of placemats, I should have woven the center a little bit longer, clearly, if I was going to make it the same size. This set of placemats looks so great on a table because they're all different, but they are related to each other. I love these. And then, of course, I stuck to the colors in the kit again, trying to be a good girl. But you've got other stash. So here's the very first one where I substituted the light. I kept my the dark chocolate brown, but my light I substituted pale limette. So if you've got other colors in your stash drawer, you get them out and play. This was so much fun, and it was so fast and easy to weave these with just 2 shuttles. Multiple picks. It was the first time we started to put multiple picks around floating selvages so that we could build up our pattern and weave quickly and efficiently with these supplementary weft structures. So that goes there, that goes there. Oh no, wait, there's more. I forgot about the scarves. So now we have these 2 scarves out on the table, and I'm just going to read to you what I said about them. Oh, I have to just review it for 1 sec. I left the warp exactly the same. It's 15 ends per inch. It's 8/2 cotton. And the one thing that I changed was my weft. And my weft became 18/2 merino. Yep. And the same thing, I use that 18/2 merino for the tabby and for the pattern picks, and I use double picks around the floating selvage in the pattern picks. I tried to keep the first scarf very, very simple, creating a positive, negative border at the ends, and then the body was just the same all the way through that big repetitive sequence over and over and over again. It's quite a fetching men's scarf, I think. A little too masculine for me. But you can see the great graphic detail, these big long stripes here, the wider stripes down here. So all that color and weave is there. Simplified treadling, very, very simple treadling. And this one is another variation on a theme. I started out trying to keep it very, very simple. And then, me being me, I tried something different. And then it morphed into this, where I brought in another color. But these are fun and fast, easy to weave, and only require 4 shafts. That's what I love. There was one more little bonus in this episode, and I wish I had those scarves, but they're gone. Mavis sold them. Anyway, while I was doing all of this weaving, Mavis McMillan was on the Monk's Belt Dream team, and she came in to deliver those placemats that I talked about earlier, where she had overlaid her color and weave thread by thread on her monk's belt. Her pieces were spectacular. I was also looking in an old book. What was it called? I should remember this, the Virginia West Swatch book. And I was looking at a threading for monk's belt with a little border threading on 1 and 4, 1 and 4. And I said, oh my gosh, this is monk's belt. It's just woven differently. Monk's belt threading. I said, Mavis, will you go home and weave this for me? And she did. She did 2 beautiful renditions of it. And so we put the pattern, we gave you the pattern on how to create it. But you can see the threading is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. 1, 4 is the plain weave that frames those blocks. And is there another image in here? No. But all there is? Oh, Jeanette's saying, yes, there is. Keep turning the pages. See, she knows this because she made them. There. There was the other version of it. And for this one, we use Zephyr and 22 silk. They're both so beautiful. But a monk's belt, you know, a monk's belt-ish pattern with a little added something, 1 and 4. So there is a lot in this episode, a lot to explore, many different ways to look at it. And you can tell I spend a lot of time studying threadings, because when we study the threading of a weave structure, of any pattern, we see similarities to things that we've done in the past. And the more I work on 4 shafts, the more I see this huge relationship between all weave structures on 4 shafts. We saw that this year, where so many things were linked from one thing to another. I really love the 4-shaft loom more than ever. All right, so that's a nice little look at monk's belt, and we're going to move right along to half draw, monk's belt's cousin.